concept of insulin suppression,
which is just a concept that you've put forward, Rob, still, and it's utter claptrap.
or a lack of GLP-1 triggering.
Well, which, Rob?
And if you remove that out of the equation,
By pouring carbohydrates down your neck that will keep you a fatty, that's what you said, isn't it? We ought to all be a bit fat, Rob, to subserve some blood parameter. Okay, good.
you can correct the plaque formation in the insulin-suppressed patient.
Rubbish. Because you've got the cause of the plaque formation completely wrong, Rob. You have not done a deterministic model or a root cause analysis clearly on the etiology of atherosclerosis heart disease. Ergo, your erroneous gobshite is of no value to anyone. It's actually counterproductive. It's disinformation, Rob. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to also pull your head in and stop making videos permanently. You are dumb. This is unacceptable. Hello, darlings. Thanks for joining me once again, where people continue to be wrong on interwebs, don't they? It doesn't look like slowing down anytime soon. Many of you have asked me to react to Rob Cywes in his recent video concerning why are carnivores at risk for heart attacks? ? So I will. You're welcome. The usual caveats before I kick off, well, the usual caveats for my new style. Number one, I have a new style, which is I'm not going to be swearing at people. I might still swear, but not at anybody. I'm not going to be quite so abrasive or abusive. I'm just going to stick to the facts. So if that's triggering for you, perhaps you should click off now. And if you prefer to watch me swear at people, well, perhaps you can watch my old videos where there's plenty of that going on. Secondly, I will try very clearly to delineate between opinions and facts, both mine and Rob's. So if that's triggering for you, once again, you should probably click off now. And finally, if you would rather listen to Rob uninterrupted without me pausing as I see fit, and even in the middle of a sentence, and often, then you should just do that. You should click off my video and go and watch Rob's, in which case you won't learn anything except what Rob wants you to think, which, as it turns out in this video, well, I have some issues with it. So let's deal with it. Rob, tell us all about why carnivores are at risk for heart attacks. Before you get going, though, let me just be very clear. Perhaps it's a fourth caveat. There are no studies existing anywhere on this planet which can inform us, you, me, Auntie Floss, or even us collectively, of our risk of anything as relates to heart health outcomes such as heart attacks, as that relates to any aspect of our nutritional behavior at all. Not one, anywhere. So perhaps the title is clickbait and perhaps Rob Cywes is going to get this right. I somehow doubt it, though. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, though, Rob. Off you go.
Hi, folks. I am Dr. Rob Cywes. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. And there has been consternation and a lot of concern from a lot of my patients. I'm getting emails and phone calls about a paper that was recently released by...
Yes, the LMHR keto study. Absolute nonsense, garbage, of no utility, of no value, actually of negative value to our community because of the vast incompetence of its authors. Entirely unacceptable nonsense that's done huge damage, purely, mostly because people in general, including the antithesists of the keto carnivore community, do not comprehend science, and they think this piece of work here is science and that it proves something that they would like it to prove. Unfortunately, Rob, it doesn't. It's nonsense. We're actually done with this. There's nothing to say about this paper. It is of no value at all. It's of no utility. It informs us in no way on nothing. But let's cover it.
A group of folks led by Dr. Dave Feldman.
No, Dave Feldman is not a doctor. Dave Feldman is a software engineer, not even a scientist. He started a thing called the Citizen Science, whatever. I forget what he even calls it. It's nuts. Do you see me running around saying, I'm setting up the Citizen Gynecological Society? No experience, but I'll take a look at it for you, Rob. That's not my area of expertise. Okay? what Dave has done is he's annexed, I guess, or acquired the assistance of a couple of researchers, very young men, both of them, very young in terms of both years and in terms of their careers as scientists, neither of whom have the experience or wisdom to run an appropriate scientific study, it seems. Neither of whom understand that this kind of ridiculous claptrap that's been done in this paper is not remotely akin to science. And they've been, shall we say, supported by a senior academic author who actually couldn't be asked even reading the thing before it was published. Okay? As such, there have been some massive errors in terms of the conduct of the study and the way in which or about which the study has been communicated to the literature. Absolutely appalling. Sorry, you need to make some progress, Rob.
And Matt Budoff, great people.
Well, yeah, perhaps they are. That's your opinion, Rob, and you're entitled to it. Perhaps in their personal lives, perhaps they are great people. What they are not is competent scientists, patently. Okay?
All, for the majority of them, good connections that I have in the ketogenic space.
Okay, so they're friends of yours. That doesn't make them any more competent. They still aren't.
I consider all of these folks to be friends and mentors. And
well, that shows very poor judgment. Friendship, fine, Rob. You can be friends with anyone you like, obviously. But you should be very, very choosy about who you allow to mentor you. And none of those three people, well, four if you count Budoff, none of those people you should remotely consider to be appropriate people to mentor you on anything. Sorry about that.
Very, very smart people.
Well, perhaps they are. That doesn't make them competent scientists. They still aren't.
And they conducted the LMHR, lean mass hyperresponder study,
yes,
to determine if high levels of LDL that these patients have to meet that criteria, high levels of cholesterol, high levels of LDL, correlate with the formation of cardiovascular plaque. And
right. Well, so what? Even if it does, which it seems it didn't. But so what? Many things are and are not correlated with many other things. That informs us in no way about causality whatsoever. Sorry about that.
As most of the rest of the world assumes, and the entire statin-using world predicts.
Right. Well, I think I've covered statins in plenty of detail already on my channel, and my absolute standpoint on statins, that they are an absolutely contraindicated metabolic poison. The reason I say that is because they are. That is a fact. It's an unassailable fact. But that's for another day.
So, yes, the study very eloquently, what these guys did is
eloquently, you say? That's an opinion, Rob. We're here to talk about the science, please.
They took a group of people that met the LMHR criteria.
Right.
I have several patients in the study. They did 2 studies.
Okay.
But the first study was looking at a group of LMHR people with certain criteria, lean mass.
As you say, yes, just some people that meet a few criteria. Not an established, demonstrated phenotype at all. Just somebody's opinion, somebody's construct. Dave Feldman's, as it turns out. The engineer, remember? Not a scientist or a physiologist at all, remember?
Mass, elevated LDL, elevated triglyceride, elevated...
According to whom, on the basis of what?
LDL, elevated...
Yes, they had criteria for absolute numbers. Perhaps you should just tell us what they were, Rob. Because elevated is a value judgment statement. Just tell us what the numbers were. That's how science is litigated empirically.
Elevated cholesterol, elevated HDL, low triglycerides, and an A1C below 6.
Okay. Well, as it turns out, I think they had 100 people in the keto CTA study from memory. What we can say about outcomes of that study are that they are applicable to and cut and pastable to no other people. That was a finding on those 100 people under the conditions that they lived at that time, and nobody else. You can't even apply it to another group of people that meet those same 2 or 3 criteria, because, Rob, confounds, covariates, collinearities, a nearly indefinite milieu of uncontrolled confounds there. Okay, so this study is of no value from the start. It should never have even been conducted. Even less, they should have not registered a primary outcome measure that they then failed to report on in the write-up, thus making it look as though they were trying to shovel something under the carpet and giving our antithesists in that other community the ammunition that they think they need to prove their point, while tapping this paper saying, look, this paper proves that keto is a problem, when it doesn't. And look, they were trying to hide it, is what's being said. And I can see why they're saying that. A, because they want to theologically affect people. They want to propagandize people. And B, because of their destitution of scientific competence. They really think they have a point. As it seems, maybe to you, Rob, you think they had a point in this paper. I'm stunned, frankly. Please, though, help me understand what your thinking is.
For what it's worth. Not sure I would have done that, but...
I would not have done it.
That's the LMHR category. They then did a CT angiogram of their heart to look at how much plaque they had.
Right. And how was that quantified and reported upon? Tell us about the issues with that. Or, as I know you're going to do, Rob, don't do that at all. Just brush it over.
Soft and hard plaque. Then they restudied them a year later, or I think 2 years later in the comparative...
Well, which, Rob? Was it 1 year or 2?
Group. And they looked at any increase in plaque.
According to whom, on the basis of what? Again, should we look at the measurement methodology flaws, the faults, the foibles with it? And even if it was a perfect measuring device, which it isn't, so what? What we have is the outcome in, I think it was 100 people, as I said, over a relatively short period of time. Those 100 people, under the conditions that they were living. And now they're being described as representative of everybody who undertakes a keto or carnivore diet of any kind by the antithetical crowd. Antithetical, I think it is. My apologies.
And number one, they proved categorically...
Rob, no. No. There is nothing in the literature that categorically proves anything, including our objective reality. That is metaphysical. That is beyond the grasp of science to achieve. Whether or not you even exist, Rob. Please. Goodness sake. I believe you're the holder of a... Yes, you are. It's on your shirt. You need to tell us by putting it on your shirt you're the holder of a PhD as well as an MD. You should know this. Categorically proved. No.
As we knew before, as I've known for a very long time, and that's why I'm so comfortable not prescribing statins.
Well, you shouldn't prescribe statins. They are absolutely contraindicated. But not because of anything this study did.
As we knew before, that high triglycerides, high cholesterol and high LDL does not correlate with an increase in cardiovascular risk or increase in plaque.
There are no studies that can inform on risk either way, up or down, of any hard health outcome in human beings over any period of time as that relates to any dietary intervention or any drug intervention. There are no cause and effect studies. That's basic science, Rob. Sorry to be disparaging, but you need to do better in your communication there.
Plaque formation. We knew that before. This study, in a very eloquent way, quantifies that. And also the two modern things that the cardiologists are now using, it's more sensitive, which is apolipoprotein B and LP little a.
Neither of which can be shown to be causal in heart disease either, nor to particularly correlate, and even if it did, so what? Still.
Also, did not, as expected,
do a basic deterministic root cause analysis on a full understanding of the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis under the microscope of understanding the histology of atherosclerotic lesions and their localization, Rob. I know I'm singing to the choir in that you are on the same team as I am in terms of the lipid hypothesis, which is false. I'm pointing out why it is demonstrably false. It's nothing to do with some correlative study. It's to do with a basic deterministic root cause analysis. Okay?
expected, correlate with the accumulation of soft plaque.
Yeah, so what? Correlations are of no value or utility to us in this field.
Okay.
No, it's not okay, Rob. Not okay at all.
However, that absolutely proved the hypothesis.
Wrong. Repeating the same fallacious error of communication again does not make it any more forceful. It's still wrong, Rob. No.
And that is very reassuring, but we kind of knew that before. And
that's a value judgment statement and an opinion.
I will put in the show notes, I'll put this paper.
I think everybody's aware of it and where to find it.
For my friend Dave Feldman and his cohort.
Fine.
One of the smartest physicians I've ever met, by the way, is a guy called Adrian Sotomota.
Well, that may be so, but on the basis of his involvement in this ridiculous anti-scientific claptrap, this keto CTA paper, he is not a competent scientist. Sorry. Not sorry. It's just a fact.
Guy lives in Mexico City, just ridiculously brilliant. But
well, that's an opinion as well, Rob. If it were true, objectively, he would not have been involved in this paper because it is absolute claptrap. It's cuck. Sorry about that.
So they had great characters producing this paper.
But again, that is a value judgment statement and an opinion, and it's not one I share, as I think I've been clear about.
But here's what they also found, which they didn't expect, but I did, is that there was an increase. There was an increase.
You said that, remember, just 2 seconds ago.
In soft plaque formation.
According to whom, on the basis of what? Let's look at the measurement technique again, shall we?
Non-calcified plaque volume and CAC score.
Right. Also what? We know that atherosclerotic disease is progressive. We know that those people in that study had some, most of them, at the beginning, and at the end, they had some more. So, shock me.
Plaque score, total plaque score, went up.
Well, again, total plaque score. What's that, Rob? What is total plaque score?
During that year of study.
Well, was it 1 or 2 years, Rob? We still aren't clear on that. I am, because I've read the paper.
And this caused the panic buttons to hit.
Well, no, it's not panic buttons. It's ridiculous theological claptrap and point scoring by the antithetical, Wagnerized population. The theologues, the theologians, the propagandists that want to scare people. They're pointing at this thing as if it establishes anything and as if it's some kind of science. It isn't. Still.
And I just got a flood of calls from my patients. Secondly, there's another statistic from a separate, I believe it's a separate study. The data is still being suppressed here. It's still being...
suppressed? You mean it hasn't been released yet? It's a different thing.
Written about. So, and that is one of the things that I have a problem with. I love these guys to bits.
You've said that, remember? Doesn't impact the vastly poor quality of what was done here. the unacceptable claptrappery of what was done here. The fact that these people are friends of yours and whatever else has no bearing on the quality of what they did. I hope you're going to say that.
They are mentors for me. They're brilliant.
Again, you've said that too, remember, Rob? And they shouldn't be mentors to you. They are not the sort of people that you want to take advice from, I promise you.
But they've handled the PR extremely poorly.
Yes, they have.
They've handled it because they didn't expect the backlash that they did.
That's because they lack the experience and wisdom required to do scientific work in this field and to understand the kind of work they should and should not do and how they should communicate about it at the end. That's why that happened. And because the senior author couldn't be bothered to read the f***ing thing. He's got his name on it because they said we need a senior author to give it some credibility, and he said, fine, put my name on it. It is patent from him being interviewed since that time and comments that he has made about the thing that he had not even read it, let alone had any input into the thing. Okay? Goodness sake.
However, I'm fully in support of these folks.
Why, Rob? Perhaps personally, as friends of yours, fine. They have grossly, vastly f***ed up, haven't they? No two ways about it. As such, they should have the self-awareness and good grace to pull their heads in and remain silent from this point forward, under the understanding of how much damage they have done with their incompetence. You might get that I'm a bit pissed off about this. And I'm not even trying to hide that. All right, what's next?
They did brilliant science.
They did no such thing, Rob. That's ridiculous. If you think this was brilliant science, you need to return your PhD. It was nothing of the sort, Rob. Totally unacceptable. Knock it off.
And there is an absolute explanation for what they've said. They're not going to like my explanation because it denotes a problem.
Well, I doubt I'm going to like your explanation either, Rob, but let's hear it.
But they then did a study where they compared the lean mass hyperresponder that are supposed to be these super healthy people with high LDL.
According to whom, on the basis of what? According to a software engineer, on the basis of absolutely no understanding whatsoever of human physiology, nutritional requirements, or anything else. That's what. NZNature is not even a thing, other than it's a group of disparate, non-homogeneous individuals who fit 2 or 3 specific criteria arbitrarily set by said engineer. Seriously? Are you having a laugh, Rob? It's not funny.
And low levels of heart disease, they looked at their progressive soft plaque formation and they compared it with a similar group of people.
No, they didn't. They compared it with a completely different group of people who they purport was similar. How many uncontrolled degrees of freedom were allowed to exist between those groups? Given that they were not genetically identical sets of twins, infinite. Given that they were not controlled as per their life experiences up to the point that the study started, from the time of their conception onwards, Rob, no, they're not matched pairs. Goodness sake.
That we're eating a standard American diet. And obviously the hypothesis is LMHR, clean eating, a lot of these people are pure carnivores, they're all fat.
And a lot of them are not. Again, that's one of the degrees of freedom that wasn't controlled here.
Adapted.
Again, fat adapted, according to whom, on the basis of what? That wasn't established by this study. This was a respondent data survey. The paper alludes in an apocryphal manner to the establishment of so-called fat adaptation via a test of ketone levels. We don't know on how many occasions, even. I suspect it was once. Well, we all know that ketogenesis goes up and down on a daily basis. No, Rob. They were not necessarily adapted to anything in particular. These people were a group of 100 people that were representative of those 100 people and nobody else. Still.
Should have a statistically lower plaque progression than the standard American diet people.
Do you understand the difference between statistical significance and clinical significance, Rob, even? I'm really starting to doubt your scientific competence, frankly. And I'm sorry to have to say that publicly. I'll say it to your face if you like, because that's what seems to be the case here. Carry on, though.
They didn't.
So what? Again, can we cut and paste that result to any other group of people other than those 100 people at that time under the conditions they were living? No. We're done. It's of no value. None at all.
They had about the same progression. They had about the same
So what?
progression
You just said that, Rob.
of plaque formation.
Yes, you just said that.
Oh my God! Why?
We don't know. A milieu of uncontrolled degrees of freedom, Rob. This study is incapable of passing out cause nor effect. Still.
I've got a lot of patients in this study. I know why.
You said that already, Rob.
And I'm not better than anybody. It's just being a little bit more objective and not having the cognitive dissonance.
I beg to differ a bit, frankly.
You can tell I'm not a lean mass hyperresponder. I'm a fat guy.
I'm glad you have at least the self-awareness, Rob, to point that out to save me doing it. Okay? That means one of two things is in effect. One, you don't know how to control your body mass, your fatness, I should say. Sorry, my bad. Your adiposity. You don't know how to control that. Or you choose to be over adipose. Even though I know you've lost a lot of weight already, what's your current rate of loss, Rob? Now, if you don't know how to control your adiposity, then the reason for us to listen to you any further in that regard is null and void. And if you choose to remain adipose as a matter of choice, because I've been watching your videos for a while and you don't look to me to have lost any weight during that time, fat again, I should say, sorry, once again, fat, then that's another reason to not listen to you any further. I think you're done here, Rob. I'm sorry. Those are the facts. Shall we move on, though? Let's hear the rest since we started.
Blood work is beautiful.
Okay, well, there's another pointer to a lack of appreciation of the objective reality in which we find ourselves. Your blood work is beautiful, Rob, on the basis of what, according to whom?
Blood work meets LMHR criteria. The reason
No, it doesn't. Still.
I'm not an LMHR is because I'm fat. My BMI is 26.9, 27.
Right. Okay.
Down from over 40.
The criteria for LMHR means your blood work and your body mass, your adiposity. Once again, I'm getting that wrong. I need to stop that. Adiposity is the issue here. So you do not meet the criteria. So saying that you do in all aspects except one is ludicrous. If you don't meet all the criteria for this so-called thing, LMHR, then you're not one. You don't represent a population of people who do meet those few criteria. Okay? For goodness sake.
I'm not an LMHR, but by my blood work I am.
No, you're not. Still.
And I am intentionally not an LMHR.
Oh my God, there it is. Now we know which one it was of the two that are possible. I think it might be a bit of both, in fact, still, but okay. So you're saying that you're over adipose still by choice. There it is, folks. Are we done with Dr. Rob Cywes? I am.
Ooh.
But we'll hear the rest because we started.
I'm intentionally, I could be, but I'm intentionally not.
Wow. There it is.
And here's why.
Go on.
And this is very important to understand.
Yes, I'm sure you think that.
Okay?
No, it's not okay, Rob. It is not okay at all, my friend. Maybe we're unfriends now, if we weren't already, because I've commented about your videos in the past, your ridiculous videos, frankly, in the past. Remember that one where you got it all wrong about omega-3 oils? Remember that one where you got it all wrong about vitamin C? Remember those, Rob? Did you watch those? Perhaps you should. Maybe you should rethink who your mentor is. Ken Berry's got it right as to who his mentor is, or at least one of his mentors. There are quite a few others who are in the same boat, who actually do listen to someone who knows what they're talking about. It's this guy. He knows. Follow him on Twitter, actually. HRH_Ted. You'll find him over there. He's a bit gobby, though, and his language is a bit... Anyway, if you like that sort of thing, that's where you'll find that. But he's the one that runs the show around here. All hail Ted. Ted is the science. Ted is safe and effective, is Ted. Don't question Ted.
We know absolutely.
There we go again, Rob. No, we f***ing don't. No. Absolutely not. Whatever you're going to say next.
Categorically.
No, and repeating it again, will not affect the complete fallaciousness of what you are about to say, whatever it is.
That insulin resistance
is a construct, Rob. Please give me the name of a company I can contact today to order an insulin resistance meter into which I can place the blood of an individual to test their insulin resistance. For goodness sake.
Insulin resistance caused by chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption.
Well, no. It's not insulin resistance. It's the effect of the glycerol fatty acid cycle, mostly, that causes this phenomenon to occur, as proposed by Sir Philip Randall in about 1963. Perhaps you should go and look that thing up, Rob. It may be enlightening for you.
In a certain...
What it suggests to a competent person with a competent faculty of reasoning is that it exists because it is encoded for in our very genes, those genes being the absolute peak of the evolutionary process, however long that's been to this point, and it's long enough, okay? The genes knowing exactly what it is they're doing and why. It is my strongly held opinion, on the basis of my interpretation of the thing and how it affects the physiology of people, that it exists precisely in order to protect the complex and important cells of our important organs from glycation damage. That would occur were it not in effect, according to the concentration gradient of vastly too much glucose in the blood. Okay? The sacrificial lambs, therefore, becoming the erythrocytes, the white cells, the platelets and other formed elements in the blood, and the endothelial cells of the vascular tree, which can be replaced much more rapidly, much more sensibly on a much quicker time frame, according to the system for that very purpose, largely, which is covered in the study of our bone marrow and our CD34 plus adult stem cells, which it behooves all of you to learn much more about, actually, because not only do CD34 plus adult stem cells become red cells, white cells, platelets, and endothelial cells, they are also quite capable and, in fact, do demonstrably differentiate into brand new cell lines of any kind whatsoever in the body, with the exception of gametes, sperm and eggs. And when they differentiate into new replacement cells, they do so with full-length telomeres. There's a video on my channel about that. It's listed quite clearly in my community tab. You should go and watch that video. And when you've watched it, you should buy the product that I am promoting in that video, because what does that product do? It increases your release of adult stem cells. Isn't that great? I'm not allowed to say fountain of youth. So what I usually say is I'm not allowed to say fountain of youth, and then I've said fountain of youth 3 times within a short period of time. Because, Rob, repeating things again and again and again is very effective, apparently, according to you. Go buy it. Do that after this video. Okay? I'll also put the link so you can just go and buy it off the link underneath this video. It'll be the first thing in the subject line underneath the show notes. Okay? Right, Rob, what were you saying?
A subset of the population who cannot, for a variety of genetic reasons, produce massive amounts of insulin.
Well, that's not a bad thing necessarily, is it? Because massive amounts of insulin, Rob, is very problematic directly in terms of the inflammatory effect of it and several other things, including the inability to mobilize and get fat oxidation happening, among other things. Not so good.
So they produce higher insulin than...
Well, hang on, you just said they can't produce insulin. So now you're saying they produce too much insulin. Which is it, Rob? What are you talking about?
Fasting insulins, so they can have hyperinsulinemia, but when they eat a lot of sugar and starch, their insulin resistance, the receptor...
No, that's still a construct.
Downregulation, the receptor phosphorylation...
Right, so the insulin is unaffected then. What we're talking about is whether or not the GLUT4 transporter is translocated from its intracellular site, where it cannot transport glucose into the cell, up to the cell membrane, where it becomes a part of that, opens out like a flower and allows the work of the GLUT4 to occur. And in the situation where, because of the internal makeup of the oxidizable substrates in that cell, for example, that cell requires no more at this time, what it absolutely needs to do is prevent sugar pouring in according to a concentration gradient which is aberrant. Ergo, it closes off and dives back into the cell, ergo removing it from the membrane and preventing absolutely the translocation of glucose into the cell. It happens for a reason, the reason being the protection of that cell from that glycation damage, Rob, still. Okay?
Of their cells is greater than they can produce insulin. They cannot get sugar into their cells.
Which is the design, as I've just said, yes?
They cannot clear sugar from their bloodstream.
Right, and the reason for that I have already made very clear, yes?
So their blood sugar...
Also, the blood sugar, therefore, as it rises, will go back to the liver and be sensed by the liver, and de novo lipogenesis will occur, won't it? Thus clearing the sugar slower than is optimal if the sugar challenge insult is vast and massive, which it is in most people who eat inappropriately. Yeah.
Sugar grows up. They may gain a little bit of weight, but they're usually not very fat, and they are what we call diabesogenic.
That's the term that you've just made up, is it, Rob? Who's we? Because I don't call people anything of the sort. Because I understand what's going on. Their bodies are working perfectly according to the design, as they should. Still.
As you've heard me say many times,
that doesn't make it right, does it, Rob? And it's probably in one video, again and again, within seconds, I would suspect, given your prior form on that.
very obesogenic. I can produce massive amounts of insulin.
Well, that's a bad thing, Rob. That's a very, very bad thing indeed.
So no matter what the blockade is, I can produce high enough insulin to clear my blood sugar.
No, you can't. Not if the Randall cycle thing that I'm talking about is activated to its full extent. No, because there won't be enough GLUT4 on the cell membrane for that to occur, irrespective of how much insulin is in your blood. Still, you really ought to look this thing up and learn about it. It's fascinating.
That's why I'm a fat guy, but my blood sugars are normal.
So, that means that your ability to undertake de novo lipogenesis is quite good, perhaps. Apparently it is, as you yourself have alluded to and pointed to. Is that a good thing? No.
A1C,
How's your blood pressure, by the way?
5.2.
Okay. Well, that would be in line with your ability to clear it to fat. Another form of homeostatic response. Perhaps you should knock out the carbs, Rob, permanently. See what happens.
Okay.
That's not okay, Rob. It's not okay at all. You're telling us you are voluntarily maintaining an unhealthy level of adiposity, a suboptimal level of adiposity, in order to subserve your ridiculous views on some physiological parameters in your blood, which you clearly don't actually understand, despite your MD and your PhD qualifications. It's really quite stunning to me. I'm shocked. Even more shocked than I was that you completely got it wrong about vitamin C and you completely got it wrong about omega-3s. Wow.
So the diabesogenic people genetic.
Again, just a term that clearly you and perhaps some others are tossing around and agreeing with each other upon, doesn't make it right. It's still nonsense, Rob.
When they also eat a high carbohydrate diet, develop
Which they should not do.
insulin resistance,
No, it's still a construct.
cannot produce enough insulin, blood sugar goes up, they start to develop.
It's nothing to do with their ability to produce the insulin, Rob. It's to do with the fact that it will not have the effect that it would normally have were the cells not locked from the inside by virtue of removing those GLUT4 transporters from the membrane. Still.
To develop vascular inflammation caused by hyperglycemia, and they...
Really? Says who? According to whom, on the basis of what? And Rob, if you have hyperglycemia, the concentration of glucose in your blood is fairly homogeneous, isn't it, throughout the blood? At least in the arterial side of the vascular tree, which is the only place where atherosclerosis develops, by the way, not in the venous system. Ergo, if that were the cause, then the atherosclerosis, the lesions, would develop evenly across the entire inner surface of the endothelium. It doesn't. Ergo, root cause analysis, deterministic modelling, dismisses your fallacious concept there. Okay? What is next?
They develop cardiovascular disease.
Yes, cardiovascular disease, soft plaques, occur in predictable, clear zones. We know exactly where these things will develop. We know where to look for them when we scan patients and look for them. Don't we? They are not evenly developing across the entire endothelial surface. Ergo, something else is at play that you haven't got a grip on yet, Rob. Perhaps you should watch my video on the real cause of heart disease, and or the one where I did a collaboration video on the same topic with Dr. Andrew Kaufman, who I realise is a psychiatrist and not a cardiovascular pathophysiologist. That's okay. I am a cardiovascular pathophysiologist, Rob. Retired.
And hard plaque because of diabetes. Because of
Yes. What is it about diabetes, though, that makes the heart disease more likely? More likely is the inflammation to which you refer, but it is not the cause. It is a contributor. Okay? Really important distinction, which you clearly have not made in your mind.
chronically elevated and spiking blood sugar. You know, folks, I use Ketone IQ.
Oh my God, seriously, if we needed any more reasons to stop listening to Rob Cywes, go on, Rob.
For a variety of different reasons.
Well, let's hear them.
But recently, Ketone IQ, or HVMN, the company that produces it, has
Exogenous ketones, Rob. Is that what you're suggesting is a good idea now? Okay, tell us why.
spent a lot of money supporting funding for studies because, okay,
Studies, you say, and a lot of money spent on studies. So?
this makes me feel better, but is there data, is there research to support this? And
Well, so far, Rob, you haven't shown much to make me feel like you're a competent consumer of science. I'm confused. Help me understand.
one of the big studies that they've just released, and they were at the
Big study? It must be good then if it's big, because that's what determines the quality of a study. It's bigness.
Boston Marathon, they support the Tour de France,
Oh, well, it must be good then.
is do exogenous ketones boost athletic performance?
So what if it does? Is that a good idea? Perhaps if you're a professional athlete. However, professional athletes, in terms of long-term health, oh, that's the last thing on their mind, Rob. Don't quote me on it, because I can't remember where it is published or whatever. I just know it is because I've read it. There was a paper done at one of the Olympiads in relatively recent years, certainly during my lifetime, which is getting on a bit now, to be fair, but that's for another day. What did they find? They did a respondent survey data, but that's okay because they weren't looking at cause and effect. They were looking at attitudes. Okay? And they asked a large sample of the athletes at that Olympiad, if we could give you a performance-enhancing drug that will absolutely guarantee you a gold medal at this Olympiad here this week, it is undetectable, you will not be caught, you will not be disqualified, but it guarantees you will die within the next 5 years, would you take that drug? You would be stunned at the proportion of people, those athletes, who said, yes, I would. So don't conflate athletic performance with anything whatever to do with health, Rob. It isn't. Okay? Actually, athletes tend to overtrain to such a degree as it is absolutely clearly deleterious in later life. This conflation of athletic performance with health is not a good idea. Okay?
I'm going to do a whole long talk on this,
Oh, please do. Make sure you repeat yourself 100 times when you do it, though, Rob.
discussing this from a performance perspective.
Right, well, performance is one thing. Yes, health is another thing entirely. So what?
But I can tell you, and you'll see in the show notes, you'll see the ad, you'll see the study. In a placebo-controlled study with trained athletes.
Well, probably the word control is being misused in that case, because if these people weren't locked in laboratories the entire time, then it wasn't controlled, was it?
So these are fit folks.
Yes, we get that, for God's sake.
Ketone IQ boosted average sprint power by 9.
So now you're going to make a cause and effect statement on the basis of a study that claimed to be controlled that almost certainly was not. And you're also going to conflate athletic performance with that's a good idea and you too should buy this product. Wow, Rob. Seriously, I think you and I need to have a bit of a chat about the way forward here, both in terms of your adiposity and in terms of what it is you're saying to people on your channel. Because frankly, at the moment, not acceptable at all. Okay?
19% peak power by 13%.
Oh, so what?
So you got sprint power by 19%.
You just said that.
peak power by 13%,
That too.
and cut fatigue by 10%.
Well, is that a good idea? Fatigue happens for a reason too, Rob. Goodness gracious.
Increasing the speed of recovery.
Right, well, is that a good idea? Perhaps for a professional athlete who has no interest in health. For your average Joe Blow, that's not a good idea because general adaptation syndrome, Rob, is a mild form of injury induced by appropriate training, which almost nobody understands what that is. By the way, I'm an exercise physiologist as well, in case you didn't know. Okay. Followed by the recovery process, leading to healing slightly better than you were before the injury, such that when you impose that kind of exercise stress again, the injury is less. It's the physiological response. It requires a period of recovery. If you shortcut that process, you shortcut the training response, purely to subserve the ability to repeat the insult. Completely contraindicated, Rob. Wow.
And it also spiked blood ketones 5 times higher than normal.
Well, is that a good thing? And if so, why?
In 20 minutes in fat-adapted trained athletes.
So
there is strong evidence that ketone IQ
strong evidence is a value judgment statement. It's a non-scientific statement. It's an opinion.
does boost athletic performance.
Okay, well, is that a good idea?
In the short term. I've played around.
Right, well, what about long term?
With this. I'm not a trained athlete.
We got that.
I am fat-adapted ketosis.
Says whom? How do we define fat-adapted? If it's purely via ketosis, then I think you're missing one or two parameters there, Rob.
Works in my own life. If you're
In what way does it work in your own life? What's improved since you've been taking this product, Rob?
an athlete out there, do the experiment.
Why? We should all just f*** around and find out, should we?
Okay?
No, it's not okay, Rob. It's not fucking remotely okay. It's totally unacceptable.
That's insulin resistance.
No, it isn't. It's still a construct. It's still an idea put forward by a group of people who claim authority in this field for some reason. People who don't understand what's going on. People who want to put this thing forward as some kind of pathology. It fucking isn't.
And one of the roles that I play as a physician is to help people to transition away from insulin resistance to
which is still a construct.
Insulin sensitivity.
Which is also a construct.
Where you upregulate and dephosphorylate the receptors. So you have a lot of receptors and you don't need much insulin to clear the sugar. But that only happens when the cells need sugar. They're not trying
That's right. That's the whole point.
to protect themselves, which means you are not consuming carbohydrates in your diet.
Right. You got something right, finally. We should not eat carbohydrates. Good.
That is the principle of a low carbohydrate diet.
Oh, well, thank you. Good.
And I use the word specifically there, low carbohydrate diet, healthy fat, moderate protein.
Well, what's healthy fat? And what's moderate protein? And once you've defined those terms empirically, tell us according to whom and on the basis of what. That'll be good.
Okay.
No, it's not. Still.
And we can, over the course of about 2 years, restore and measure insulin sensitivity.
My God, 2 years? I can fix someone's metabolic problem with vastly elevated blood glucose chronically like that. I tell you what the secret is. Stop pouring any amount of carbohydrates down your stupid fucking neck. There you go. Job's done.
where you have a moderately elevated glucagon, a lowish insulin, and glucagon and insulin.
What's moderately elevated and what's lowish? And then tell us according to whom on the basis of what?
Are reactive to each other.
Yes?
In a polar opposite way.
No.
During storage phase, when you're storing your food, your insulin goes up, your glucagon goes down, and between meals, your glucagon goes up, your insulin goes down, and you use fat. So there's
right. Well, so what?
This ebb and flow, storage and utilization.
Right. Well, that's the normal course of events, yes.
That is insulin sensitive.
No, that's just the normal course of events. Insulin sensitivity is still a construct.
Okay.
No, it is not okay. Still.
Now.
Stop making that smacky noise with your mouth, for God's sake.
In order to release insulin, you have to have a little bit of sugar in your body.
Nonsense. Factually, demonstrably, absolutely incorrect. Wow. Rob Cywes, wow.
Because sugar triggers GLP-1, GLP-1 triggers insulin.
Right. And there's no other way to get insulin released, is there not? Goodness sake.
And I have a number of people in the lean mass hyperresponder plan who offer...
No, you don't, because it's still not a thing. That's just people who fit into 4 arbitrary categories, which don't inform us in any way of their phenotypical anythings, really.
Fastidious long-term carnivores.
Says whom? And what do you mean by fastidious?
What happens in humans when
all humans, you mean?
You are a long-term carnivore is you don't trigger GLP-1 because it requires carbohydrates, glucose, galactose, fructose to trigger GLP-1. And
really? Perhaps you better go and check your facts on that too.
GLP-1 then triggers insulin and blocks glucagon, and when that goes down...
Because here's the thing, see, Rob, gluconeogenesis is still a thing. It still exists. There is still glucose in the blood if you don't eat any. Were that not so, well, you'd be dead within 4.5 minutes, wouldn't you? I despair often about the quality of and competence of people who feel for some reason that they are competent to speak in this field, and then they come online, as Rob Cywes has done here, and make these excremental videos without a single thing to commend them on, really, at all. It's absolutely nuts that anybody would remotely take this garbage seriously. Wow. I'm gobsmacked.
Down, you see the oscillation. So on a low carbohydrate, but not a zero carbohydrate diet.
What's a zero carbohydrate diet? Who consumes that? That would be someone that consumes, well, only fat. No protein. No carbohydrates of any kind at all. Who does that? And for how long could they possibly do that before they find themselves dead?
That is optimal. Optimal.
Yes. It is optimal to consume, to all intents and purposes, no exogenous carbohydrates to speak of. You will find that there is carbohydrate in meat still. And in, dairy, if you're going to be intaking any significant amount of dairy, which absolutely you should do if you do well on that, fine.
Short period of eating, some intermittent fasting, is the optimal human diet to create insulin sensitivity.
Nonsense. It's still a construct. It's still absolute garbage, Rob. It still has nothing to commend it whatsoever.
The LMHRs,
still don't really exist. They are just a group of people with 4 or so parameters within a certain range.
Definition. How do we know this? Because insulin regulates cholesterol formation and cholesterol uptake from the gut.
So what?
And the LMHRs are taking up they're eating a lot of fat, they're taking up massive amounts of cholesterol from
Geez, that's amazing, isn't it?
their gut, not regulated.
Oh, right, because 80% of the cholesterol in any given person's body at any given time wasn't manufactured by that person's body via the metabolic tree, nothing whatever to do with the cholesterol that's being consumed in the gut.
Because the insulin levels are low, so that's super high.
How do you know? Have you measured every single insulin level in every single person who purports to be an LMHR, Rob? No, you fucking haven't.
High cholesterol, not a concern for me, but the super high cholesterol
What is super high cholesterol? According to whom, on the basis of what?
represents the fact that their insulin levels are low.
According to whom, on the basis of what? According to your theory? Have you measured? No, you haven't still.
Testosterone levels may come down.
So? Have you not grasped the simple fact that a person's affect is the most important thing? Not the parameters of the levels of some hormone or other? For goodness sake.
Sugar rises because they don't have adequate insulin.
Again, according to whom? On the basis of what?
To clear the sugar. Where's the sugar coming from? It's coming from the conversion of protein to sugar.
Oh, right, because the human body is so utterly inane, Rob, after our entire process of evolution to this point, which is significant, millions and billions of years in the total timeline, it's so inane that immediately it's going to start chewing up its own protein to produce sugar instead of using the fat that is there. Even a very lean person has what they call hundreds of thousands of so-called calories worth, I know it's nonsense, of fat on their body. They have grams and grams and grams and grams of fat on their body. Why on earth would they then dissolve their protein to make glucose? For goodness sake.
Gluconeogenesis. So these LMHRs typically have, and I measure this all the time, super high glucagon, super low insulin. That's why we use.
What do you mean by super low? And what do you mean by super high? And the fact that you may have measured this a few times in some people who meet the criteria for LMHR, but are not controlled in any other way as to their homogeneity, what do you think that tells us, Rob? Not a damn thing.
Use the word insulin suppression because they're not releasing insulin in response to GLP-1.
According to whom, on the basis of what? Yes.
I really need some help with that duck.
Okay. Can you give me a few minutes?
Yes.
All right. I'll come and help you with the duck.
It's getting quite dark.
Right. I get that. Okay. Cool.
You've been lying for the last hour or so.
Well, yes, I've had several videos to make. People have been wrong on the interwebs, believe it or not.
Really?
I know. It's incredible. All right. I'll be with you soon. Right. Well, I'm going to go and catch a duck, and then I'm going to come back and finish dealing with Rob. So, yeah, stick with the program. Of course, I'll just be back. Before you know it, there won't be any time in your experience. It'll only be time in my experience. It's relativity. Right, I'm back. Did you miss me? I missed you. I couldn't help myself. Anyway, I'm a bit puffed. Chasing ducks around. Incredible. Okay, right. Rob, where were we?
Amino acids create about a 10 to 20% insulin rise, but not adequate to clear the sugar. So their blood sugars start.
Well, that's the biological design. It's not that the amount of insulin is inadequate to do anything, Rob. It's the fact that the amount of glucose in the bloodstream is an overplus. Because still, gluconeogenesis takes care of, and the homeostatic mechanism takes care of what the blood glucose level ought to be. Pouring any significant amount down your throat at any time, not indicated, even if you're an athlete, even if you're a performance athlete, much less exogenous ketones.
Fluctuating,
I'll get my breath back soon.
rising, the A1Cs rise, not necessarily to diabetic range, but 5.7, 5.8, 5.9.
Well, that's diabetic, according to the range of what's diabetes in most countries and territories, Rob. The cutoff in most countries and territories, the threshold value for diabetes is 5.6. Complete nonsense as well, but that's what it is. For goodness sake, and we know why the A1C goes up in people that are largely carnivore or completely carnivore. I've covered that in detail too on my channel. If people want to go and have a look at that, you probably should.
Elevated blood sugar, and in that proportion of LMHRs that also come from a diabesogenic background.
Still some ridiculous construct.
That accumulation, that insulin suppression.
No. Just an idea, Rob, just a theory that you've put forward. Goodness sake.
Inability to clear the sugar and a diabetes.
Well, here's the thing, Rob. Homeostasis is a thing. The processes of homeostasis are a thing. They do occur for good reasons. In a person who activates their Randall cycle, or the effect of the Randall cycle, the thing parsimoniously described as the Randall cycle, if they activate that thing to a large degree a lot of the time, let's say by eating too much carbohydrate, for example, and the insulin is being pumped out all the time, insulin being in and of itself directly problematic if its concentration in the blood is too high. Okay, there's a paper come out recently on that too, perhaps you should read it. Then the body might react quite rightly by saying, well, actually this insulin is not having the effect on the blood glucose that it should have. Maybe I should give up on pumping out so much insulin. So it's not a bad thing. Okay?
Diabesogenic propensity toward vascular inflammation results in plaque formation.
Nonsense. Absolute nonsense, Rob. Again, go and do a deterministic root cause analysis on atherosclerotic lesioning, including a full study and discourse of the histology of that tissue and its localization. And then come and make a video apologizing to your viewership for your arrogance and your Dunning-Kruger in this particular respect. Okay?
So in our LMHR fastidious carnivore high-fat patients,
Again, all things that you've just said because you've said them, are any of them actually established facts? No.
who are genetically susceptible,
According to whom, on the basis of what? Have you done gene analysis, Rob, on anyone, let alone every person you've ever come across who identifies as an LMHR? For goodness sake.
they will form plaque. And the interesting thing is that when you're insulin suppressed,
We've covered this.
your body behaves no differently by the numbers than if you're, for the most part, than if you're insulin resistant.
What does that even mean, Rob? What on earth are you talking about? If a person's level of production of insulin is lower than you might expect it to be on the basis of the blood glucose concentration, then they do respond differently by the numbers. Don't they? For fuck's sake.
We see the elevation in blood sugar, we see the elevation in A1C, we see the vascular inflammation. One of the big differences, though, with the insulin-resistant people, we see low HDL and high triglycerides. With
So?
the LMHRs, we see high HDL, but rising triglycerides usually.
So?
Rising triglycerides,
You just fucking said that.
rising blood sugars, low insulin. These folks have very high insulin. They have high glucagon because there's a disconnect between glucagon and insulin.
Oh, right. I thought you said that they were absolutely polar opposites and did respond to each other absolutely. Now you're saying they're disconnecting. Which is it, Rob?
Lean mass hyper.
Anybody that wants to understand why I never get through one of these videos, it seems, without actually getting frustrated, here it is, this kind of nonsense. Wow.
Responder insulin suppressed people have very low insulin and super high glucagon.
Why don't you tell us the same thing 700 times within a minute or so, Rob? Despite the fact that what you're saying is absolute cuck. Saying it a number of times doesn't make it any of any higher quality. It isn't still.
So I can tell the difference. I can tell where you are.
But you can't tell what it is you need to do to lose the excess adiposity off your body within a reasonable time frame. Neither can you see that you ought to stop making these videos permanently, Rob, on the basis that you don't have a grip or a grasp on what's going on here at all, in fact. Okay.
Low testosterone in men, recurrent.
So what? And what's low, according to whom, on the basis of what?
Of PCOS, some fatigue.
PCOS in men now, is it, Rob? Goodness gracious. If we weren't already convinced, there it is there. PCOS in men is what Rob has just said. Perhaps you misspoke.
Kind of the Paul Saladino 2020 picture.
Oh my God. Paul Salad, I don't know. Yeah, okay.
And it's the absence of carbohydrates in their diet that's the problem. So
No, it f***ing isn't. Still. Absolutely not. Wrong.
the problem is not cholesterol.
We know that. We agree on that.
Problem's insulin.
No, it fucking isn't. No matter how many times you say that, it still isn't true.
Problem is insulin.
No, it still fucking isn't. No matter how many times you fucking say it, Rob. Still no.
And actually the problem is...
No, actually saying actually before you say something makes no difference to whether or not what you're going to say is actually correct or whether it actually fucking isn't.
GLP-1, not even insulin.
Oh, Jesus. Tell us 3 or 4 times in a fucking row within a few seconds the problem is insulin and then turn around and change your fucking mind. No, it's GLP-1. Fuck. Wow. Only a few minutes left. Bear with me.
It's seen as low insulin, but the problem is it's low GLP-1 triggering.
Oh, fuck me. Rob! Despite the fact that what you're saying is absolute fucking nonsense, at least write yourself a goddamn script. Have some kind of plan of what you're going to fucking say. And fucking say it once.
As the insulin spike, the back end, the appetite suppression GLP-1 is working, but that doesn't release significant insulin. So you can correct this by introducing a small amount of carbohydrate to your...
How much is that, Rob? And what is it going to correct? Because you haven't identified with any degree of anything that would convince us in any way, shape or form that what you're saying is even correct. And now you're going to tell us a small amount. How much is that?
diet. And we've been doing this for about 7 or 8 years now.
So fucking what? You still haven't quantified a small amount.
We recognized insulin suppression.
Which is still an idea that you've got in your head for some fucking reason and not actually an objective reality.
In our beautiful LMHR.
At least not in the way that you're describing it, as some kind of pathology, which it isn't still.
Population, and we started to introduce some carbohydrate.
How many carbohydrates? Rob. Still.
The reason why I'm not in the ultra low weight LMHR population is because I do eat a little bit of carbohydrates as milk and maybe some vegetables.
Well, hang on a minute, sunshine. Is it a good thing to have some carbohydrates, whatever the that is, or is it not? You've just said we can solve all our problems by having a little bit of carbohydrate, and now you're saying you're a fatty because you have a little bit of carbohydrate. Seriously? Are you stoned?
To trigger insulin. But my cholesterol and my LDL is high.
According to whom? On the basis of what?
Not in the LMHR territory. My body weight is preserved and I'm not worried about it. Yeah, I'd like to lose a little bit more weight, but I'd rather carry the extra weight and have a normal blood profile.
Oh, right. So you'd rather be a fatty, which is absolutely contraindicated for ideal long-term health, to subserve the desired effect of having some parameter in your blood at a level you'd like it to be for some fallacious reason. F*** me sideways. Are you stoned? Perhaps you should be. With real f***ing stones. That's just a little joke. Relax.
Be insulin sensitive than be
Still a construct.
insulin suppressed
Still a construct.
or insulin resistant.
Still a construct, Rob. Let's all listen to Rob.
The next video
Oh, yes, please make another video. Can't wait.
is going to talk about the difference between human biology and carnivore biology.
Oh, right, because humans are not carnivores. Now, Rob, is that what you're saying? Right off, Rob. Seriously, son, I think you're done. D-O-N-E. Finito.
And it's a very, very important concept.
Well, if you say so, but we've seen what your idea about concepts are in this video alone. Not to mention, as I say, your video about vitamin C where you got it completely arse about face, and omega-3 where you were so wrong it was laughable. For examples, Rob. And it seems you haven't learned a damn thing. Perhaps you didn't even watch my critiques of you. You really ought to. You might learn something.
That we don't understand.
There are a lot of things that a lot of people don't understand, Rob. Apparently.
Because the final paradox I'll tell you is the fastest, best, most effective way to therapeutic way to get better, to lose weight and to
well, if weight is the goal here, Rob, and nothing else, just weight, then I think we go back to my diet that I've been promoting quite strongly for the last little bit, which is the cut your legs off diet. Its effect is immediate. The moment we amputate both your legs at the waist, your weight goes down remarkably. No waiting around for that pesky weight loss to occur because of dietary intervention. Let's all just cut our legs off, shall we? Go on there, tell us the best way to lose weight, by which I'm assuming you mean fat.
rid of your diabetes is
I don't have diabetes to get rid of, Rob.
a pure, high-fat, absolute pure carnivore diet.
That's correct, it seems. You got something right. That's two things in the whole video, I think. Well done.
But it's not
Stop making that ridiculous clicky noise with your mouth, for God's sake.
a good human diet.
Yes, it is. False again, Rob. Immediately, right behind saying something correct, you have to put something absolutely, fundamentally, absolutely incorrect right behind it, don't you? You can't help yourself, it seems.
In perpetuity.
Rubbish. There is no evidence to support that ridiculous claim, Rob. None at all. Indeed.
And that's going to baffle a lot of people and upset.
Well, only people that are stupid, Rob. People that are stupid enough to listen to you and think you have any credibility whatsoever. And if that's you, I'm sorry. You're stupid.
A lot of people. But that is just me translating normal human physiology.
No, it isn't, Rob. That's you giving us your completely unfounded, ridiculous f***ing opinion. That's what that is.
And I'm going to go and do a deep dive into
Oh, God, please do a deep dive. Is it going to be like this deep dive, where you're just going to make up shit that suits you? And are you going to tell us the same thing 100,000 times in the video within seconds? Because we're all too stupid to understand anything the first time.
To that in the next discussion.
Oh, God, yes, please. I can't wait.
The LMHR paper can be very easily explained.
Well, it doesn't need to be. It can be utterly dismissed as a complete waste of effort, time, whatever money was spent on it. It is of no value, no utility, and no prognostic value for anybody anywhere in the world. Done. Finish. So are its authors.
The concept of insulin suppression,
which is just a concept that you've put forward, Rob, still, and it's utter claptrap.
Or a lack of GLP-1 triggering.
Well, which, Rob?
And if you remove that out of the equation,
by pouring carbohydrates down your neck that will keep you a fatty, that's what you said, isn't it? We ought to all be a bit fat, Rob, to subserve some blood parameter. Okay, good.
You can correct the plaque formation in the insulin suppressed patient.
Rubbish. Because you've got the cause of the plaque formation completely wrong, Rob. You have not done a deterministic model or a root cause analysis clearly on the etiology of atherosclerosis heart disease. Ergo, your erroneous gobshite is of no value to anyone. It's actually counterproductive. It's disinformation, Rob. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to also pull your head in and stop making videos permanently. You are done. This is unacceptable. What's next?
And then you will see the difference that we see between plaque formation on insulin sensitive people who do not form plaque.
Still a construct.
And the insulin.
And are you saying that everybody in the world who is, as you call it, insulin sensitive does not develop plaque? Utter garbage. Total utter garbage.
Insulin resistant and the insulin suppressed patient.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Seriously.
So while
stop with the clicky noise. Still.
HR is a great place to get to.
No, it isn't. It's a ridiculous, fallacious construct proffered up by a software engineer. Still.
A good place to stay.
No, it isn't. Still.
And in fact, Nick Norwitz published
here we go.
A little YouTube video, tongue-in-cheek. Eat Oreo cookies, you can lower your LDL. Absolutely. What are you doing? You're triggering GLP-1.
Oh, my God. The sheer Dunning-Kruger dripping from this man is incredible.
Triggering insulin. And you're lowering your cholesterol because insulin's doing its job. Fascinating.
Ridiculous.
Please leave your comments. And
I think I've made several here, Rob. Perhaps you might have the self-awareness to sit through this from start to finish and learn something. I doubt you will.
If you don't know what to do, if you're now baffled and confused and upset and
then stop listening to clowns like Rob Cywes. Come and listen to someone with some credibility. And by the way, you will not find credibility via bits of paper, letters after your name. I've got all the letters after my name anyone would possibly want, I think, personally. I've got all the letters I want. I have plenty of experience as a research scientist, as a former professor of health sciences, but that's not what gives me credibility. The thing that gives me credibility is the sense in what I say. Whether you like the way I say it or not is irrespective of that fact. The problem here is arrogance and Dunning-Kruger. And almost everybody that is making videos online. It seems to be a rarity that a person such as myself can come online and educate people appropriately with good knowledge, good wisdom of how to apply that knowledge, and some appreciation of the scientific disciplines, the epistemology under which we all should be labouring. Yet as I said, it's as rare as rocking horse shit that anyone seems to be able to apply this stuff. Sorry if you don't like the way I do it. Sorry, not sorry.
Concerned, set up a visit. I'll go through your numbers.
Do not consult with Rob Cywes. He will not help you. He will lead you up the garden path. I'm available for consults. bit.ly/Bart-KAY. You can set it up there. I'm very reasonable in terms of pricing. And also, when you speak to me one-on-one, you won't get any of this aggro because you're a paying client. This is for edutainment value. Okay? It's not a real person. I am a real person in the real life. I am very credible and I will help you. Rob won't. Despite his desire to, he's unable. He does not have a grip. Okay?
And I'll give you some guidance.
Well, I wouldn't accept guidance from Rob Cywes. I mean, for a start, right at the very beginning, Rob said that his mentors are the guys that wrote that paper. Or amongst his mentors are the people that wrote that paper who he thinks are very smart somehow. That should have been all you needed, really, to go, oh, well, we don't need to listen to you, Rob.
As to how to optimize your body's physiology in a perpetuitous way, in a sustainable, longitudinal way until you die.
Right, which will be sooner if you eat any significant amount of carbohydrates or carry any significant level, Rob, of adiposity. Almost certainly, won't it? Okay, all else being equal. Hey, any one of us could die at any given stage for all sorts of reasons, couldn't we? Both within and without our direct control. However, Rob, your adiposity is within your direct control. That's something you can sort out, and you should. Absolutely, irrespective of your blood parameters, which you need to start interpreting correctly. And stop making shit up, basically. That would help too.
I am the carb addiction
Stop with the f***ing mouth smacking.
doc, not afraid of controversial things if
Neither. I'm there.
the human physiology, the human biology supports my position.
It f***ing doesn't. You've given us your theory. You've given us your opinions. You haven't underpinned that with a damn thing. And you've shown very little to no appreciation of the disciplines of the epistemology of science in your entire video or any other of your videos I've seen previously, Rob. Absolutely f***ing appalling.
And in this case, it does.
No, it f***ing doesn't still.
Watch the next video.
No, don't do that. Right, there it is. Rob Cywes. Done. Finished. That's the end of that. Join me next time when someone else will be wrong on interwebs, because it's not going to slow down anytime soon, apparently, is it? Sadly, no. See you then.